Hey everybody, it's Boardman21 and today's build is going to be Foe's currently ranked number 1 and 2 sacrifice build. And basically what this is going to take advantage of is Death Seal, the new skill that has come very recently to the game, and it increases your damage immensely while it's active. You've probably seen that if you've watched my 3 million DPS build, and it also gives you a lot of armor and protections, and it can also do a lot of damage itself while it's active. Now on my DPS build that I did, I was using Enzanglius. On this build, however, Foe is using armor and protections and stacking a lot of life. Now the gear in this video is going to be slightly different than his. We're going to be running a lot more life and elemental protections because we didn't have the idols that he was doing, so we're going to do slightly less damage, although this is still a high DPS build, and we're going to be running a lot more life, which is going to help with your survivability. This is also a super high dodge build. You want to dodge everything. You want to stay in Reaper form as much as you can for an extra life, and you basically just want to be sacrificing and using Death Seal as much as possible. The only times you don't really want to use Death Seal is like at the very beginning of spawning of a wave, because you don't know what's coming and you don't want to suddenly get hit by a bunch of things from range. So you just want to be a little bit careful with it, but even when it's active, it does take you down to 33% life so that you can get 67% bonuses from the damage and other things for missing life. But you will get a bunch of armor and protections while it's active. Stacked with what we have, it's enough for you to take a few hits. We are going to be running 70+% dodge, and that's going to help you avoid all the hits. Now again, this build goes complete credit to Foe. He is currently ranked number 1 and 2 with slight variations of the same build, I believe. He did pass me along, and actually I think he put it in Vision's chat, his entire build and gear planner. He didn't put up his specific gear, but it shows you what you should go for, and in this video I'll show you what I have and how it's working. And it's very viable in the arena. You can go really far, and it's a super high DPS, meaning you're going to clear waves really fast. With that, let's go ahead and get into the skills. For skills, we're going to be running Summon Skeleton, Death Seal, Sacrifice, Reaper Form, and Transplant. Now, for Summon Skeleton, basically the whole point of this is to summon as many as possible, as quickly as possible, increase the maximum on them, and then also get mana back when they die. On top of that, we give them a slight chance when they die to also be resummoned automatically. Now, what doesn't matter? Health leech, survivability, health on them, regen, none of that matters for the skeletons. All you want on them is to sacrifice them, so they just need to be summoned and executed as quickly as possible. For that, we have 2 points in Unholy Rage, 1 point in Marrow Walkers, 4 points in Unbound Necromancy, 4 points in Immortal, 1 point in Marrow Tap, 2 points in Empty the Graves, 1 point in Grave Walkers, 2 points in Soul Catcher, and 3 points in Mind Catcher. For Death Seal, probably the most OP broken skill in the game right now, because of the fact that it can multiply your damage instead of additively adding to it, and on top of that it does great damage. This thing's going to be critting for 4 to 6k on all enemies it hits in an area, which makes it just as OP as basically Glacier. The only thing that it won't do is give you ward on hit, which makes it unlike the mage, but what it will do is give you armor and protections while it's active, and give you a huge amount, 250% more than what you already have as damage, as increased damage while it's active. Now for this, we're going to be running 5 points in Corrupted Consciousness. This gives you 5% more damage multiplicatively per 2% of missing health. Now it's weird because in the tooltip it says for each 1% of missing health, and then in the Corrupted Consciousness part it says 2% missing health, so it's 1 for 2, but I believe it's actually 2% missing health gives you 5%. And what we're going to be doing is we have 1 point in Deadlock, so that this will instantly lower you to 33% of your maximum health, and that means that you're missing 67%, which 67 divided by 2 is basically 33. 33 times 5 is 165. So you're going to be getting 165% more global damage, and that's multiplicative with all your other damages. On top of that, we have 3 points in Desperate Shroud, so that per 10 missing health, and we're stacking quite a bit of health, you're going to get an additional 6 armor and protections per 10 health missing. So you'll be missing 600 health, which is 60 times 6, which means you get 360 increased armor and protections. The more health that you can stack and the better that you can enchant the armor, the better you are going to do. Now, a lot of the items in here we put together pretty quickly, so a lot of it's just T3, maybe some T4 stuff in there. So we don't have the most health. You can easily get, especially with the idols that we're using, which are increased percentage of health. We don't have any flat stacked health that would give you even more. You could probably get 2,000 plus health on this build, which will increase your survivability major time. On top of that, we have 1 point in Moral Pulse, so that every second that Death Seal is active, a Death Wave will be cast. It's a pretty big area around you, and then with 5 points in Tachycardia, probably pronounced that wrong, oh well, it'll give you 100% more frequency, so now it's going to be releasing it every half a second. On top of that, we have 2 points in Moratorium. I don't know why they put such hard words in here, but this will increase the duration by 2 seconds, and then we have 3 points in Death's Breath to increase the area of the Death Wave by 60%. For sacrifice, this is the most kind of optimal way that we could get it set up. You want it to chain, you want it to have as big as detonation area as you can get, and then you also want the base damage of your sacrifice skeletons to be as much as possible, or any minion that you technically sacrifice, which will also include your decoys that are made when you transplant. You also get wraths on kill and some other things, so there's actually quite a few things that you'll be sacrificing, but the base damage applies to all of them, so that's fine. So we have 3 points in Soul Shatter, 3 points in Punishment, 1 point in Alter the Flames, 2 points in Burning Offering, and 3 points in Infernal Vindication, 1 point in Temple of Awe, 6 points in Necromantic Audience, and 1 point in Catalyst of Horror, so that it will chain. For Reaper, basically whenever you can be, you want to be in Reaper form as much as possible for the ultimate experience of having a free life. That also means that in between waves you should let Reaper run out and then re-get into it right at the start of a wave, because while you're in it, your degen picks up at an accelerating rate, and therefore if you spent more than a few minutes in a wave or in in one zone, you want to get out of it and redo it so that you have a chance. That said, you have so much health leech going on in this build and so much damage that it's pretty hard to get knocked out of it unless you get like one hit with something. So for this we have 1 point in Soul for a Soul, 4 points in Reaper's Curse, 2 points in Death Comes Quickly, and 3 points in Rapid Destruction, 4 points in Mistress of Decay, 4 points in Harbinger, not Hamburger, Harbinger of Blood, and 2 points in Reaper's Ascendance. For Transplant, you're basically using this like you would have thought before. You want some decoy dummies that you're going to make, you want to get your mana back, and then you want bone armor. Really as simple as that. So we have 1 point in Acolyte's Fervor, 1 point in Rain of Blood, 2 points in Sadism, 3 points in Pale Blood, 3 points in bone armor, 2 points in Plated Bone, 3 points in Apostasy, 1 point in Simulacrum. Boy, I'm so far off. 1 point in Purgatory and 2 points in Ivory Court for some more bone minions so that you can sacrifice those. Doesn't matter if they're skeletons, doesn't matter if it's wraths, and it doesn't matter if it's bone minions. They're all going to do the same amount of damage when you sacrifice them. It's not based on like their health or anything else. Now for passives. In the Acolyte base class, we have 30 points, probably more, but 30 points is the cutoff. We have 4 points in Forbidden Knowledge, 5 points in Mania of Mortality, 8 points in Blood Aura, 2 points in Dark Rituals, 5 points in Blood Pact, 1 point in Crimson Gluttony, and 6 points in Veins of Power. 24 points in the Necromancer, we have 5 points in Elixir of Hunger, 10 points in Cursed Blood, 1 point in Mark of Punishment, 5 points in Wisp Weaver and 3 points in Putrid Retribution, with 59 points in the Lich. This is also our mastered class. We have 8 points in Survival of the Cruel, 8 points in Serrated Bones, 3 points in Wrathbringer for some Wrath chance on kill, 8 points in Dance with Death, which this is pretty pointless, but low life is considered under 35% health, so when you do have Death Seal active, that means your damage is also tripled with that, which is then multiplied. You get some crazy damage, and just for an example, if I were to run this right now and do it, you'll see that normally we just sit at about 150%. Our spell damage is 239%. As soon as I activate that, we jump up to 607% spell damage and 450 of basically everything else, with 650 knockout. That's pretty high damage. You can see our wave is just going crazy every half second, and it's hitting really, really hard. Continuing on, we have 5 points in Volatile Blood, 4 points in Deathbringer, 5 points in Clairvoyant Insight, 8 points in Ageless Aseptic, 5 points in Soul Maul, and that's it. For items, we're running a Prophecy Wand with some spell damage twice. This also gives you blind on hit and some elemental protection. Now in this build, we did not go for any protection. We copied foe. We didn't go for any necrotic, void, or poison. So avoid those at all costs, because that's probably how you're going to die. With high dodge and the ability to always be moving and doing damage basically from a ranged area, pretty much like Shatter Strike, you should be able to avoid most things. However, if you don't, try and only get hit by elemental things, because that's where our defense lies. As you can see in our defense, we're sitting at 2,100 elemental protections and nothing on the other side of the bar. When Death Seal is active, though, you do sit quite a little bit higher. You get some damage reduction. However, you are only sitting at 390 life. Granted, you will be in Reaper form almost all of the time, so you do get a free life if you do get one shot. Don't get one shot twice in a row, then you are dead. We are also running no special affixes. I believe Foe was actually running some +1 skeleton stuff and some rare things. I wasn't going to take the time to try and find those, so we don't have that, so we just went with increased health and dodge rating. I'm going to hover over all of these. Do you want set elemental protection and set dodge on everything? Basically, you're just going for dodge, elemental protection, critical strike chance when you can get it, and that's really it. Just as much life, as much dodge. That's all you're really going for here, and that's all of our items. The play style of this, which you'll watch in the gameplay, but I'll just go over it real quick with you. The play style is basically you're just gonna run around, make sure that you're in Reaper form as much as possible. If you get knocked out, try and dodge everything, just keep running away. And then when you can, you're going to, every time it comes off cooldown, you're going to activate Death Seal, and you're just going to run around and kill everything with this giant wave that's killing everything. And if you are at a distance, you can just summon some skeletons, sacrifice them. I would put Transplant. I put Transplant on autocast, so it's always going, so I always have full mana, and that's all you do. Sacrifice, you get some good damage out of the sacrifice. Just keep using Death Seal. You know, when Death Seal's not active, I try and stay away from the fight, just because with it active, you're leeching so much of that damage that even if you're in the fight getting hit with melee things, you usually are getting way more health back. You can get one hit during that process and get knocked out of Reaper, but at that point you know that you should be running for your life to stay out of the fight. And with really high dodge, you don't really get hit from afar very often. You also have blind on hit, so if you're running away from mobs and you hit them at all, most likely they're going to even miss more often than not. With that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the gameplay.